Okay guys, well today we are in my backyard. It's brew day. I got some friends coming down from Wisconsin, going to make up a cream ale for them. Cream ale is largely considered the only true American beer style. We're going to do that. Along the way, we're going to talk about the bye week, some new COVID stuff, and of course, put together a solid game plan, Packers versus Buccaneers. So let's do this. I'm Brady Augustine. I've been a Packers, Bucs, Brewers, and Badgers fan all my life. And as an unabashed Scotty living in Northeast Tennessee, I love adventures in the great outdoors, being independent, and building my own stuff, whether it be with friends or alone, in the city or in the countryside. I also like things that are different, so this show is a mashup of adventures, hangouts, projects, and Packers talk. Welcome to the Packers video blog that is literally off the beaten path. Welcome to the Packabont. Okay, we're going to light the fire on about 4.5 gallons of drinking water, spring water, whatever you've got available to you, and talk about this fermented food that we're about to make. I have anything culinary is very interesting to me. Anything fermented is very fascinating to me. Fermented foods and human beings go back millennia, and it is fermented foods that are, to a great extent, responsible for our gut health. So I drink kombucha on a regular basis, which is a fermented food. Bread is a fermented food. Chocolate, fermented food. And of course this ale that we're making, the difference being, in this case, we're going to hermetically seal it so that the alcohol stays with the food. And of course we all know the fun and or dangers that involves. So please be responsible. As always, moderation is of course key. And this batch I am making for some friends who are coming down, so I'm really excited they're going to be here, and I'm excited that I'll be able to share this with them. And so there are a couple ways we can go about doing this. In this case, you will see in front of you the ingredients list. I'm using a kit to create this beer, and that list will have everything we need on it. You can do all grain brewing, which is taking the grain and malting it yourself. Basically, the step that this kit is taking out is malting the grain. So we have a liquid malt extract that makes it very easy, and you'll see that in front of you now. And also some specialty grains that are just for color. A bag to put the specialty grains in. Then the hops come right in the box as well. We put those in for the full brew. And a little packet of yeast, similar to what you see for bread. And finally, some sugar if you want to bottle this. We are going to be kegging, so we won't need that. And as far as equipment, you will need a 5-gallon bucket with a solid lid and an airlock, big kettle that can hold, 2.5. I can hold 6 gallons. And then if you want, optional is a wort chiller. You'll see how that works later on. You just dip it in, sterilize it, and then run your water hose through it, and that cools the wort down to yeast pitching temperature. Of course, we need a thermometer as well because we need to know what temperature the water is. And then it always helps to have a big burner. If you don't have that one, you can do it on an electric stove. It does work. It's just not nearly as convenient. And with that, we're ready to throw our thermometer into our heating water and put the specialty grains into the mesh bag. Set that in. That steeps like a big bag of tea, and all that's going to really do, the specialty grains do not have enough sugar to actually create beer with. That's what the malt extract is for. That's the concentrated sugar that the yeast will eat later on, but this will add a wonderful golden color. This is an untoasted grain, so it will be golden. If you have a dark roast on the grain, you will have a stout. The color of the beer comes from the toast on the grain. We leave that in there, but we want to make sure and get that bag of grains out before the wort reaches 170 degrees, because then we will start leaching tannins out of the hulls of that grain, and that's not a good thing. So we want to pull that out. And now let's talk some Packers, and you can visually watch the rest of this process step by step. I will throw that up for you in case you are interested in doing this yourself. It's actually really easy to do. So let's go ahead and talk Packers. Okay, guys, to begin today's game plan, I want to go over, I'm going to use as a comparison the Buccaneers game against the Chicago Bears, a game that they lost 19-20. And I'm not going to go over all the stats, but I want to do a few of the stats quick and talk about what might be working, what might not be working, and then we can feed that into the game plan after talking about the injury situation for both teams. Today is Wednesday, so the injury report just came out. And after taking a pretty good long look at this Bucs-Bears game, I think the fact that Tom Brady might be getting a few weapons back might help. But of course, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But look at the stats on Tom Brady against the Bears. Of course, we know, and the reason that I'm using the Bears game as a comparison is twofold. One, it's the most recent game. But secondly, if you look at the Bears defense versus Tom Brady and that Buccaneers offense, I think the Packers defense is similar, potentially a little bit better depending on who's back. Rashawn Gary's still limited with the ankle. On the other hand, you look at our offense, it is just as good as the Chicago Bears offense. And then you add the fact that we've got Aaron Rodgers instead of Nick Foles, and Davante Adams was a full participant. And I've got to feel like there's an opportunity for the Packers in this one if they play their cards right, and that's what a game plan is for. So running through the rest of the statistics, the ones that were interesting to me, and of course, I know nobody wants me to highlight this, but Ronnie Jones, 17 carries, 106 yards in that game with a long of 37. That, I think, is one of the biggest concerns, and Leonard Fournette was a limited participant, but that running back group getting Leonard Fournette's third on the depth chart, according to Buccaneers.com, but that team gets a running game going, and it could be a serious problem for the Green Bay Packers. What that's going to do for them is it's going to limit what Tom Brady has to do, make more effective what he does do, but then also it's going to keep Aaron Rodgers off the field. In terms of receiving, you're looking at Johnson with 4 catches for 61 yards and a long of 35. Gronkowski started to get going, 3 catches for 52 yards and a long of 23. Cameron Brate, 5 for 44, a long of 20 in that. And then Evans in here, he had 5 catches, but only 41 yards, but he did have the 1 touchdown. I'm concerned about him if they get into the red zone. I'm concerned about Gronkowski coming on strong as well. Mostly, though, I'm concerned about those guys if the run game gets going. And there was one defensive highlight. Of course, they had the 2 fumbles. Only 1 was lost. All right, now I'm going to go down to Vita Vea here, who is not going to be available for this game. 2 tackles, 1 assist, but he had the 1 sack in this game. Vita Vea is 347 pounds of 2-gapping mammoth, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense is going to miss Vita Vea. Now they still got Golston. Obviously, Shaq Barrett, he didn't get a sack in that game. I've got Aaron Rodgers drawing Shaq, very aggressive. Tries to get ahead of the snap count. I've got Aaron Rodgers getting Shaq Barrett about 5 times for offsides. But they got JPP. Rodgers talked about him. He had a sack in that game as well. Again, then I go up and you got Davis here had the 7 tackles, but he had the 1 interception. That was a little goofy to me. I think that we can handle him. And I'm not looking. We'll look at the injury report in just a second. Davis, I believe, was a limited participant or non-participant with an injury this week. That 1 interception was basically Allen Robinson trying to make a play, kicks his knees up in the air, and knees the ball or kicks the ball up into the air, which ends up being an interception. Of course, he's been good at that, so guys like that end up getting the ball in their hands. I'm not going to take it away from him, but I just don't see that happening against Aaron Rodgers and this Packers offense. So for the Bears' part, let's see what we can divine out of that. And Foles was 30 of 42 for 243 yards, a touchdown and interception. Okay. Again, under 250 yards. Both of these defenses are good. Both quarterbacks throwing 1 touchdown in this game. And I think the Bears' defense, these are similar defenses. I think the Buccaneers' defense is vastly better in terms of run protection, but I think Aaron Rodgers and this Packers offense with Davante Adams back can break down especially the safety position on this Buccaneers team. And so let's look at a few things more. We've talked about the run defense of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I think they have like 3 games in a row holding teams to under 50 yards or something like that. They've got like 11 games since their last 100-yard rusher, something like that. I think we might be able to outdo that in this game. I think it's going to involve scoring up front. It's going to be because we've got a guy that they call Nacho playing in place of Vita Vea, giving up 40 pounds, one gap, 4-3 guy, totally different. Their defense just has to be totally different and is going to have to adjust quite a bit. We heard White talk about how he wanted a chance to get after Aaron Rodgers. Well, good luck, Bucky. We'll see how that works out for you, because we can throw right over that, and I hope we do. But anyway, Montgomery, 10 carries, 29 yards. That's a 2.9 yard average. He had the touchdown, though, and touchdowns in the red zone hurt your average. I don't think that's the deal here, but I do want to highlight that touchdown run. That was right off Vita Vea's left hip, if I'm remembering it right. They had Vita Vea shade to his right, and Montgomery came right off, and with a good play up the middle. And Montgomery, at least 3 times, I would say, in this game, he only has a long of 7, but had some success up the middle against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers incredibly stout run defense. You will find how I think that matters to me in just a minute. Allen Robinson against him, 10 receptions, 90 yards, 9-yard average. It's not a big average, but that's almost a 100-yard gain along a 24 in there, so I guess the rest of his catches then were pretty short. But Devontae Adams, with the weapons that we have, I think that's an opportunity. Patterson, 3 for 38, but that's along a 25, so it's basically 2 nothings and a big hitter. Jimmy Graham, 3 catches for 33 yards. He had the one-handed touchdown. His long is 13, though. Can our tight ends get some work in this game? I think they probably can. I think they probably will. And Montgomery with a bunch of catches as well. Really active in this game. But with that, let's go ahead and just divining what we have from the statistics there. I do want to talk about the matchup quick before I move on. So scoring distribution, you had Tampa Bay scoring 10 in the first, 3 in the second. Chicago comes back, scores 14 in the second. That Jimmy Graham one-handed touchdown taking them ahead, 14-13 before the half. And then in the second half, neither teams could do really anything. They ended up just matching up with field goals, and the Bears end up winning by 1 point. This is the kind of thing, the Packers defense, if it is on an uptick, potentially getting Rashawn Gary back, and Kenny Clark was a full participant. He's got to be back. If he's a full participant, he plays, unless he has a setback. Should be able to hold Tampa Bay, should be able to be similar enough to the Bears defense. Maybe we make a mistake. Maybe we add a 7 to that. That's a 26. Maybe it's a 27. This is a Packers team that scored in 30-plus on average. Yes, this is a good defense, but we're getting Devontae Adams back, who is a full participant. We'll talk about that in a minute. All right, so in that Bears game, look at the passing yards. 233 to 208. I guess there's a little disparity there. The rush yards is the big disparity. 106 to 35 rush yards, Tampa Bay over the Bears. Time of possession, almost completely equal. Turnovers lost, each of them lost 1. Third down conversion, 28.57 to 30. I mean, that's basically even. A lot of stuff even in this game, and it basically tells me, these are 2 well-matched defenses. The Bears are struggling to have an offense, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have yet to come into their own as an offense. That's what I'm getting out of that. So let's go ahead and switch over to the injury report, which it's Wednesday, so that came out today. And I want to go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers first here. Now, here's an interesting one. Levante David, the inside linebacker, was limited today with a knee. So it looks to me like he's not going to be 100%. Carlton Davis, who we talked about earlier, with the abdomen, he did not participate. And that sounds like one, I don't know if that's a core muscle or just like an an abdomen strain or whatever it is, but he didn't participate. He was the one that got the interception on Allen in the game against the Bears. Khalil Davis was limited. Evans still did not participate with that ankle. He tried to go, and he has just not been able to get 100% healthy. The Packers coming off the bye week should be relatively fresh and quite healthy. Leonard Fournette, as I mentioned, was limited with the ankle again. Chris Godwin's a big one. Getting him back would be big. He was a limited participant with a hamstring. But again, neither of these guys are going to be 100%, it looks like. Now, sadly, Kevin King shows up on our injury report, which you'll see as I scroll down. Now, Rob Gronkowski was there with a shoulder. He's a limited participant. Now, he was limping in that game against the Bears, but I wouldn't expect you limping from a shoulder. So I think there's more going on with Gronkowski than that. LaShawn McCoy, of course, they'd like to have back as well as their second running back, and Leonard Fournette is the third. Now, that's a good group if they're all healthy, but he was limited as well with an ankle, so I don't think he'll be 100%. Scotty Miller, limited participant. JPP, limited participant. Justin Watson was a full participant. Jordan Whitehead was limited as well. So, this is a group for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that has been really banged up. But you see a few guys that might very well be coming back. Kind of a boon for Tom Brady trying to get things going together offensively after a 19-point outing. Now, for the Packers part, we've got, all right, Devontae Adams, position, wide receiver, injury, hamstring. Wednesday was a full participant in practice. That is so good to see. Now, you heard from Devontae Adams in his press conference or Zoom meeting, whatever you want to call it. Media availability, that's the word they use for that. In his media availability, and he said, I am 100% better than the 100% I was before I was held out of the last game. Devontae Adams is playing. I'm just going to say that. Jair Alexander showing up with a hand-knee injury, limited. Chris Barnes was limited with a shoulder. Kenny Clark, look at that. That FP looks pretty good. With that groin injury, he was a full participant without a step back. You got to feel like he's going to play. He's the guy that I think might be very much the difference between these two teams. Vita Vea not playing for the Buccaneers. Kenny Clark playing for the Green Bay Packers. I think that is huge. Now, we did have Tyler Ervin, who I said has an opportunity against this Buccaneers coverage unit to give the Packers really good field position on a kickoff or potentially break one. He did not participate with a wrist. So we'll see what happens with that. Rashawn Gary still limited with the ankle. I was kind of hoping to see him as a full participant, but that did not happen for me. Kevin King is the one that I really am concerned about, not participating at all in practice with a quadricep injury. So is that some kind of a contusion? Is that a pull? What's going on with that? We got Mercedes Lewis back out on the practice field. He was limited on Wednesday. Zadarius Smith, full participant with the ankle. Shannon Sullivan, full participant. So with that, let's go ahead. I'm going to try to pick up my notes. I'm going to try to be a little bit organized. But let's talk about a game plan against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. You go back, and there are some things that you can glean because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have kind of been this way all year. That game against the Bears was sloppy. It was a sloppy game. It was laden with penalties, which the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been for years. I asked myself, I was trying to answer the question, because coming up against the Green Bay Packers, you get back home, you're at home. My first thought was Bruce Arians is going to whip this team into shape, and we're not going to have any of those penalties. And all of a sudden, this team is going to play a pristine game, and that gave me cause for concern because they're giving up like 80 points a game. It's insane. It's insane what they're giving up in terms of penalty yards. Now, when I look at what the penalties were in that Bears game, I think a lot of them have to do with the aggressiveness / almost dirtiness of that defense. I mean, they have Ndamukong Suh. They're playing very, very fast, and they're playing very, very hard. I don't call them dirty, but there was some stuff going on. Anyway, I think with the aggressiveness of that defense, you're not going to be able to iron out that penalty problem just like that. Then I look at the offensive line and the struggles they had, the holds, false starts, stuff like that. I don't think that's going to get any better with the Green Bay Packers. I mean, that left tackle of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is I mean, if Rashawn Gary plays, he should have, and I'm calling this right now, multiple sacks, two sacks or more in this game. That is a terrible left tackle we're coming up against, and on an offensive line that has been performing rather well. But I think if we get Kenny Clark back, we get Rashawn Gary back, we got Z on the field, I think Preston has a chance to get one. I think that offensive line is in for another long day. As soon as they came up against the Bears, they had a long day. Khalil Mack is out there just freaking body slamming people. And I don't see that getting better for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive line going from the Chicago Bears to the Green Bay Packers, who are coming off their bye week. So you go back from that and you say, what does that say for Tom Brady? Tom Brady plays the game in a bucket. He's got a half stutter step left, right, front, back. If you let him step up in the pocket, you could be in trouble. That's where Kenny Clark comes into the picture for me. I think Kenny Clark keeps that from happening. I've said for years that interior pass rush is incredibly important against elite quarterbacks. Tom Brady is still an elite quarterback. He's not playing that way yet this year, but that's what he has been in the past. That's how you have to treat him. And he's seen everything that our defense is going to throw at him. However, he's still going to have trouble throwing against us if we're up in his face from the interior of that line, and it's a muddy pocket. And then you got Rashawn Gary coming through the left tackle, who is really struggling as far as I'm concerned. And that includes Z coming off one side or the other off Kenny Clark's hip, and Preston Smith, if we can get him to third and long, coming as well. Now that, to me, is the root of what my biggest concern is against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, and that is that they get the run game going. If you get the run game going, that's going to open it up for Tom Brady. That's going to open up stuff. Play action passes for him, make it a little bit easier, and mostly make it harder for our pass rush. If they get down to 3rd and 3, we're not going to be able to just pin our ears back. If we get some big plays early, we could have a heyday with Tom Brady. I'm telling you right now. I watched this line perform, and I know what everybody's saying about them, but when I look at the matchups that we have, I think the Packers' defensive line against and pass rush unit, so including the outside linebackers and 3-4 system base, has a real opportunity against an immobile quarterback. We've been up against guys like Kirk Cousins. We didn't get him to the ground a bunch, but he showed. I mean, he can outrun Christian Kirksey. That's not Tom Brady. When you watch him run, he is so heavy-footed. I mean, he runs like a 40-year-old man. He runs about like me probably right now. But I think there's an opportunity for the Green Bay Packers as long as they are stout against the run early in early downs, and that might include Tyler Lancaster coming out on the field more. Listen, Kingsley Keke came on. If Kenny Clark is back, you can go Kenny Clark, Tyler Lancaster early downs, down linemen. Maybe you go 3, maybe you go 2. I would expect more 3. And if we get them into 3rd and long, this could be a really fun defensive outing. And that, I think, might spark a revival of the D-Train, and that's what I'm looking for. However, I will say Todd Bowles, he's got his defense playing fast. I'm reading my notes now. You can probably tell. I said it wasn't a disciplined game against the Bears, but they were very fast. They are at times good with their eyes. They can get beat sideline to sideline, but when they're bad with their eyes, they've got so much speed they can make up for the most part, and they really make sticks out there. We've watched a Packer team that has not been good at tackling. That is generally not the case with this Buccaneers defense. So when they take the cheese, they got the speed to make up for it. Now, so sideline to sideline, we'll talk about the offense in a little bit. I think we have to be careful. They're not a team that typically you would think you could run up the middle against, but honestly, I saw more success on that with the Bears and Montgomery than I saw going sideline to sideline. All right, loss of Vita Vea, super important. But I looked at Buccaneers.com. Bowles is going to have a plan. And Nacho that I mentioned earlier, his real name, Raheem Nunez Roches, and they call him Nacho. He's their fill-in nose tackle. He's going to be stepping up to fill in that gap. Now, I think that might be a little bit of smoke and mirrors. I think they have Devin White in the plan as well, kind of stacking with him, much in the way that the Green Bay Packers stack Kenny Clark and Zadarius Smith, except for the fact that neither of those two players are anywhere near as good as those two guys. But Nacho, former 6th rounder, he got picked by the Chiefs. He's 6'2", 307. So let's compare that to Vita Vea real quick. 6'2", 307. That's a traditional 4'3", one-gap guy. That's Nacho. Vita Vea, 6'4", 347 pounds. We are talking a 40-point differential. Now, why does that matter schematically? That matters because you're looking at Corey Linsley. He's going to be head up on Corey Linsley, the best center in football right now. And Corey Linsley and Aaron Rodgers are not going to have to slide any protection based on what Nacho brings to the table. So if I'm Bowles, I'm going to have to either blitz. I'm going to have to blitz with White, whoever you want to bring, along with him and try to overload that. But it does not look good for the interior of that D-line right now. And yes, they've got a lot of good pass rushers. I mean, we can go through the list, but we know that the Green Bay Packers have one of the best freaking offensive lines in football right now. Now, it is not perfect, and I've said this, but let's go through they got Golston. We know they've got Suit. They got Levante David and Devin White back there. I suspect those guys are going to maybe be coming in some sort of double A-gap stuff. Maybe that's what they've got in the docket, or sending one of them behind Nacho. I don't know how they're going to do it. But I do know that if they go one-on-one, if Nacho goes one-on-one with Corey Linsley, that's a stalemate. Not only is that a stalemate, but that's an opportunity for the Green Bay Packers to potentially go back and have some draw plays right up the middle. Now, I know their linebackers are fast, but we can draw those linebackers off into coverage, and there might be some success there. But, they got Shaq Barrett. I've already mentioned, with no crowd noise, I think we should draw Shaq Barrett offsides at least 3 times in this game. And, Golston is there. They've got a really good pass rush, a really aggressive pass rush, but if we can take advantage of that pass rush in some way, and LaFleur gets a plan together, I think we can hurt them, and I think we can hurt them pretty bad. We can hurt them with not just offsides. Offsides is going to go to long bombs by Aaron Rodgers and potentially touchdowns, but even if they don't, if we get the right play call combination in, we can beat these guys. The places I have circled on the field right now are the flat. Obviously, everybody's been talking about the wheel routes. I will talk about that in my little spot I like to do, first play from scrimmage. But I also have, the mid-range right across the tracks or over the middle. If we run the ball successfully, or if we throw on first and second down and we get in third and short, they're going to go probably to a 2-shell look, middle open, so tight ends across the middle of the field, running down the tracks, and then guys like Sternberger come into play. Aaron Jones, of course, on the wheel routes comes into play. But let me talk about, since we're going offensively, let's just break it down a little bit. Number one, Aaron Rodgers is playing at a much higher level than Tom Brady is right now. Aaron Rodgers has a much better offensive line than Tom Brady does right now. Just look at some of the film and the look on Tom Brady's face when you've got your left tackle who's supposed to protect your backside, and he kick slides way too deep. He overcommits, and Khalil Mack just walks through him. How can you trust your line? I mean, Tom Brady, if we start getting him shaken up, it's going to be a long day for him. Aaron Rodgers, on the other hand, yes, we have to do some scheming because this is a very good, stout defensive unit with a really good pass rushing group. But we get some things going, and a lot of stuff's going to open up for Aaron Rodgers. So how do we do that? Let me go on. Let me talk about the rest of the unit, okay? Running back-wise, we are better than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Far and away better. We've got more multiple wide receiving running backs in Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. We've got A.J. Dillon, who is, a mauler. And wide receiver-wise, obviously we don't have any Allen Lazard, but Devontae Adams is coming back unless he has a setback. MVS is still there. He can still take the top off of defense, and I think he could have. He's been running without Devontae Adams. He benefits from having Adams on the field. We know we have a tight end that can score up to 3 touchdowns a game, and I think that's a weakness for the Buccaneers defense, and I think we're going to see that again. I think we're going to see the running backs catching out of the backfield, but again, how much do we use Devontae Adams coming out of the break? He's been resting for a while, but he's probably not in game shape. I don't expect anything really out of EQ. I just don't think he's ready to go. mean, I think he's healthy, but I just don't think he's ready to play. Maybe a few snaps here and there. But I think, and I was thinking about this all week, I talked about it a few times in terms of what is the game? Is there a game in which it's perfect to roll out A.J. Dillon? And I have 2 circled, all right? And this is one of them. I'm going to tell you the second one, first of all. If this is not the game that they roll out A.J. Dillon, I've got to feel like Matt LaFleur has Week 9 against the San Francisco 49ers circled. And I'm just going to say it. Peter Bukowski said after the draft, he said maybe the Packers aren't drafting to beat the 49ers. Maybe they're drafting to be the 49ers. Maybe against the 49ers, Week 9, Matt LaFleur wants A.J. Dillon to make us be the 49ers and just pound the rock all day long. Of course, Aaron Rodgers can throw better than Garoppolo, so we'll do that too. But maybe he's got that game circled without the rookie orientation, no preseason games, and a weird training camp. If that's not the case, I hope that a week where you're coming off the bye week, you've had the kid on the field. He's shown what he can do. He is actually the highest graded running back by Pro Football Focus right now on our team. Now, obviously, part of that is because he's had a limited sample size, but part of that is teams know he's getting the ball, and he is still being productive. So, with that said, I hate that phrase. I hate it when I hear people say that, and I will promise not to say it again. So, can and or will the Packers offense trot out onto the field? This is the portion of the show where I like to guess what's going to happen from first play from scrimmage. And often it is nothing that I really think is going to happen, but it's something that I like to think through and kind of hope will happen. I wouldn't be surprised, and I don't know what the combination is here, but I'm going to go Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon on the field in that split running back formation. Completely symmetrical. Both guys can run the ball. Aaron Jones can run up the middle too, but you're leaning away from him. That's why I'm not sure if you put in Jamal Williams in that scenario or not. 1st and 10 from the 25. Or whatever, wherever Tyler Ervin takes us. Maybe that's the 45. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't get to play now that he didn't participate in practice. We'll keep an eye on that. But I'm wondering about the fact that if you get Dillon on the field and you've got Aaron Jones out there, the 2 concerns, the one concern is obvious for Aaron Jones. Everybody's been talking about the wheel routes that Packers running backs have been running. We've got a fullback one in the books at some point here. If we have a fullback in there, who we play for that, I don't know. And so you've got that threat out there and a lot of tape of that, and that will affect the splits of these fast Tampa Bay Buccaneer linebackers, especially the inside linebackers. But they also know it's 1st and 10 and A.J. Dillon is on the field, and he is kind of the A-gap, B-gap guy. Obviously, they could run, they can run outside zone with him. That's what they did against the Minnesota Vikings on one of the handoffs he got, I believe. This is also a team that has inside zone and has been effective with that. Remember, Aaron Jones, they moved more to inside zone against the Cowboys and had a ton of success against a really good Cowboys linebacking group. So here's my thought on that is you go that route. You take A.J. Dillon right up the A-gap, but you play action fake to him and you roll Aaron Rodgers left and you roll Jones into the flat. Underneath that, you've got the fake, but then you've also got A.J. Dillon available for a short to mid-range pass just beyond the second level of all those linebackers that are flowing toward Aaron Jones, which basically says you get A.J. Dillon on the third level with a head of steam against what is the weakness of that defensive backfield of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's the safety position. I just wonder if there isn't an opportunity there. Now, my big question schematically is, do I roll Rodgers left toward Aaron Jones and then throw back the opposite way? That I don't know that works with like a play action dive, A-gap play. Maybe you have to flow with him a little bit. I know Matt LaFleur could figure that out better than me, but I'm just interested in whether maybe we see A.J. Dillon in this one. That Buccaneers defense is priding itself on not allowing the run, not allowing running backs to get 50 yards on them. I think that changes in this game, and I think it has one way or the other. If you get Devontae Adams or MVS or Sternberger or Tanyan or Williams or Jones. I mean, you get one of those guys going in the passing game, again, that draw play is going to be there for you. I don't know if it's going to be Williams, Jones, or Dillon, but I think in this one, I know I've been calling for it week in and week out. I have this hunch that this week is not going to be that week, but you come out of a bye, isn't it time that A.J. Dillon should be ready? And if you do the play that I'm talking about, you have a fake dive, it's play action, A.J. Dillon is not going to be responsible for any pass protection. Put him out and throw him a pass. Worst thing that can happen, obviously, he drops it. But if the Packers are right about him having natural hands, just scheme for it and let the tendencies of this Buccaneers defense go ahead and work against them. So that's what I'm kind of hoping will happen. That's my initial play call from the line of scrimmage, 1st and 10, Packers' first offensive series. But mainly, I think, down the stretch, this is a Packers offense that has enough weapons without Lazard, Davante Adams against that defensive backfield. They got a good defensive backfield, but they don't, again, this is another team that doesn't have anyone that can stop Davante Adams. So what are they going to do? Well, they've got to double him if they want to stop him. And then don't you think with a safety peeled off that Bob Tonyan's going to be open underneath? I think so. Sternberger, too. The way that Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams have been catching out of the backfield, I think, and you're looking at a team, this again, and Matt LaFleur said it today, if you can stop the run, guess what? Teams are going to throw against you because you're committing resources to that. If you stop teams or you put more smaller bodies on the field that can cover, you're going to have teams that are going to be able to run against you. The Packers have chosen to let teams run more against them than throw against them. And I think they're right. So you look at the Buccaneers team, and we are probably going to be able to throw against them at times, which means somewhere along the line, if we score enough points, we're going to be able to run against them too, because they're going to have to adjust. So I've got, Aaron Rodgers, get the ball out quick. That wheel route play, I think, will be there, but I think that's a major... You got to think of what teams are going to focus on. And after the Bears game, don't you think the Buccaneers are focusing on wheel routes in the flats? So, I think that intermediate on the tracks, down the tracks, intermediate crosser in the middle of the field might be open for us. And I think the tight ends are going to come into play on this one. Obviously, Davante Adams coming back. I think he comes back with a vengeance. He might have 2 touchdowns in this game. If the Buccaneers, roll coverage and double him, that may not be the case, but that's definitely going to open up. Aaron Jones is going to get free. Big Bob Tonyan is going to have an opportunity, and he has really been producing lately. So, all in all, I think the Packers defense has a chance to really rattle and basically break down Tom Brady. As long as we get Kenny Clark back, I don't think there's any excuse for us giving up a bunch of big plays. This Bruce Arians offense, they're going to work from the long shot back to the short stuff. I don't think that suits Tom Brady too well because he cannot, if the short stuff, if you end up reading all the way back to your short stuff, a lot of times you've got to move. And on top of that, if you're doing the long stuff first, that's going to require deep drops. What the Bears were able to do, and I wish I could kind of visualize this for you, but if you watch the game from the All-22, you can see it markedly. The Bears' defensive pressure front closes the gap with the outside rush a little bit ahead, but everything is controlled, and then they just close up like a steel trap. The Packers defense with Kenny Clark should be able to do that exact same thing. And then I think you're adding to that. So you've got Z and P on the outside. You got Kenny Clark in the middle, and you can close that trap and be careful with it. I'm sorry, I think I misspoke. Rashawn Gary and Preston on the outside, and then we can throw Z as that rover in the middle, having watched the film, and then Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary, and Preston Smith can close that trap. But then you've got Zadarius Smith kind of roving as well. And if anybody escapes, he can clean it up. If he sees a gap, he can break it and just run him. And Tom Brady is going nowhere. I think there's a real potential for Tom Brady to have a bad day against the Green Bay Packers. I guess that's what I'll say. Now, we know we can cover on the perimeter. We got to do that. Now, if we lose Kevin King, that's going to be a big one. And our safety situation, I think we're in pretty good shape. I just think we match up pretty well. I think Jair, if Kevin King can play, I think on the perimeter we can handle Evans and what he's going to bring to the table. I think if we do our work inside the 20s, we win this game. I think if we let them get into the red zone too many times, this is going to be a close one. Offensively, I think we throw the ball. Again, you know what my initial play would be, but I think we throw the ball and it opens up the run late. And, you know, conventional wisdom, that's when Dillon's going to come on the field, not in my crazy idea. But I do like to think, as Aaron Rodgers has said, that Matt LaFleur's thinking outside of the box. So we'll see if that is how it works out. I would love to see it. I just love to see something similar to say, hey, listen, I'm not crazy after all. But I probably am. Either way, I think that's how this game can go. I've got the Packers in this one. And score-wise, this is a tough one because I've mulled this over and mulled this over. I think if I'm looking at the Green Bay Packers against probably the most challenging defense they've faced, I want to put 31 on it and be positive on that. Defensively, though, I think we could hold the Buccaneers to 17. So I'm going to say 31-17 Packers. I got to write this down because this is really where I've come down to it. And I'm trying to think of what, obviously turnovers throw a wrench into that. If our offensive line doesn't perform well, and I did say this morning on the Facebook Live broadcast, I think Billy Turner might struggle against Shaq Barrett in particular. I think he might be replaced by Wagner in this one, but I like the depth of our O-line. I think overall our O-line wins today, and our scheme helps our O-line. Eventually, if we can get down to where we're running the ball, that Montgomery touchdown being right up the A-gap is interesting to me. Again, we got a 40-pound deficit at the nose tackle position that we're playing against. I think in the end we could run the ball pretty well in this game. All right, guys, that is going to do it for this Pack-a-Bon, this Bucs Packers game plan. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll talk to you guys again soon. Go Pack.
Packer Nation worldwide.